At the onset, I would like to thank the IoT Academy for taking such an initiative and making such sessions available for all the people in this process. And this session, as Madam already mentioned, is about teaching pedagogy and advanced teaching pedagogy. So, what I would be doing in this session, I will just share with you all. But I want all of you to, keep it on an interactive mode, not just that it is a lecture. And we are all already academicians in the field, and we all should exchange knowledge so that collectively we have more knowledge amongst us. So it is not going to be a one-way session. There will be some areas where you all can share your inputs. And at the end of the session, I would be happy to take any questions that you may have. And once again, I thank and welcome all of you to this session. So the first and foremost concept, or the most modern way of uh, taking a session in today's world, is using a win concept. Win stands for what? The interest and the need. So when we talk about what, that is what this slide is going to tell you. On this session completion, what will you be able to do? You will be able to describe various terms and concepts of teaching, you the pedagogy and its significance. You would understand what are the different types of teaching pedagogy and what its significance is. You would be able to discuss on the learning styles and the strategies that is required in a classroom. You would also be able to practice some of the approaches to various teaching pedagogies, and you will be able to elaborate on the teaching learning methodologies. You will also be able to look up for more information on the same. You would be able to have a little more interactive and better sessions when you understand this process. Now let us understand again, what does advanced teaching pedagogy actually mean? It means innovative and strategic approaches to teaching, which goes beyond the traditional methods. That means, we are all aware that in schools or in institutions in earlier days, it was with the blackboard or a whiteboard, where the teacher used to come and he used to say what he wanted to say. And at the end of it, he would leave the class with some tasks or homeworks. But today's teaching learning environment is totally different. It is more focused on the needs of the learner. So we do not follow those traditional methods. We try to involve the use of technology. There was a time when mobile phones or gadgets were banned in classrooms, but today the classes happen on online gadgets. So we have to integrate technology in our classroom. We have to have a diverse teaching methodology. The focus needs to be on learner, not on the trainer or the teacher. So it has to be a learner-centered education. We need to ensure that we are meeting the requirements of the students. We need to emphasize on developing certain traits in our learners, like critical thinking, problem solving, and the as a learning facilitator, we need to ensure that the learning environment is conducive or suitable for all types of learners that may come to attend our session. So this is exactly what we are going to do in this session. So now let us, as I said, we look at a win formula. What I have already covered. Now interest. Now let us look at this a little. Next couple of slides, we'll talk about the interest of this particular thing. My first question comes from here. I have a slide here where you can see there are 3 pictures on the slide. So can anyone, write into the chat box exactly what you understand by these 3 pictures? You can put out whatever you think. I'll not give a lot of time because the session time is limited. It's about a minute's time. You have to, put out your thoughts on these three pictures on the chat box. All the participants, please respond. Anyone? I think everybody is still hesitating to write. You can write whatever you comes to your mind, but anyway, I think if okay, I've got one response so far from KB Indian. Yes, curiosity. Okay, interesting. Anyway, I think I'll not be waiting more. I have to go on because the session has to be completed in about 50 minutes. So this picture is exactly what it shows. The first one is a child. The second one is a artistic picture. The third one is very clear. It says science. So ideally, what I am trying to convey in this slide is pedagogy is the art and science of teaching children. Okay, the art and science of teaching children is known as pedagogy. When we talk about adults, it is adult learning is called andragogy. It's not pedagogy, but as a generic term, we use teaching pedagogy for all the different learning environment and learners. And there is a very interesting definition of the term pedagogy. It clearly mentions here that a tutor must elicit a response that demonstrates understanding of the concept. So, as a teacher, this is what the target of the every teacher should be to to get a response from the students which demonstrates that they have understood the concept that you are trying to teach and there is a transfer of knowledge. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, again, I have another small question for all of you. Whoever is, remembering any teacher in your past who has inspired you, whom you feel like he was a very good teacher, you would have had plenty of teachers in your school, college, university. So, if you have a teacher who you feel was different, was unique, and you have been inspired by that person, kindly put the name of the teacher and you can mention what inspired you about that person. In fact, I think if it's yes, Rohan, madam, can you unmute them so that they can also unmute and speak? Okay, Mr. Indian has mentioned teaching style of Mr. Ganesh. Very good. Any others? Yeah. Anybody who wants to, unmute and speak about any of the teacher who has inspired you in your lifetime? Rohan, you raised your hand. You have something to say? Okay, I think we are still having people hesitating. So since it is time bound, I can't hold for a longer time. Let's move on. Next slide, please. Yeah. Why is pedagogy an art? Yeah, thank you, Preeti. Mrs. Daisy's way of teaching. Interesting. Uh, so here, why is pedagogy both an art and science? Art because you have to put the theories into practice and build up with your teaching experience. And science because you need to have the right knowledge of learning and instructional strategies. So the term pedagogy actually refers to the strategy of how teachers teach in practice and theory. So the pedagogy will be shaped by the beliefs of a teacher, and it relates to the interplay between a culture and a variety of teaching methods. So it is not a individual component. There are lots of factors which add value and contribute to the teaching belief and the thought and the process. For example, I'm saying in Asian countries, you will find there is a lot of respect for the teacher. So we are hesitant in questioning. Of course, this is changing. In today's date, the questions have become more frequent. But if we remember our times, we were very hesitant to question our teachers. As a mark of respect, we would stand when teachers come in. This is not much so in the Western culture. They are more like professional and they do not have this kind of restricted mindset of respect. To show respect, the practices which we follow in the Asian or Eastern countries is way different. So these are all certain things. Yes, I got one more response from Medellin, Mrs. Ranjani, her way of teaching and handling the way average students. Excellent. So can we move to the next slide? Yeah. Now there are 2 points here. This concludes mostly the interest part of the session. What interest, why you should do it, is what I'm bringing it to you here. What is the purpose of knowing about teaching, learning, pedagogy, and what should we do? So what we are doing, I covered in the objectives. Interest part, yes, try to understand. The statement is that a teacher is never going to tell you what is the truth. He is going to point you in the direction, and you can find the truth for yourself, because the truth will be different for different students. Students attending the same class with the same teacher do not achieve the same results, because each one looks at their requirement differently. So that's why, as I said, a teacher is never going to tell you this is the correct thing, because in higher education, things are always subject to change. What is true for me may not be true for any of the persons who are attending this session. So who is an average teacher who tells you what is there about the subject? A good one can explain it. He may, uh, how should I say, an example and explain things a little better to you. A superior teacher is one who can demonstrate, and the best one is the one who has a lot of passion for the subject, who carries his flame and passion into the classroom and goes beyond everything. He may not follow any of the teaching pedagogy systems. He or she may be totally, a person who is not a sticker to any of the guidelines, but still they will have the ability to inspire you. So if you are in the last category, if you are one of the best teachers, then you are blessed. You need not follow any of the systems of teaching, learning systems or pedagogy. But for the rest, if you want to improve your teaching skills and have a better presence in the classroom, then you need to learn this system and practice. Yes, I got a comment from Neil. When an artwork is produced by an artist, it shows his skill displayed, effortlessly making viewers to understand his work. Excellent. It's a very beautiful statement. Yes, it said that teaching is an art. Excellent. Now we are there into the third part of it, need for teaching pedagogy. What is the need for teaching? As mentioned in the slide, if you have the right pedagogy, you will have an improved quality of learning. The students would be more receptive during the sessions. They would be more participative. The knowledge imparted will be more across a different spectrum of learners, and there will be a development of higher level cognitive skills in the students. So these are some of the importances of the adaptation and use of pedagogy in the teaching learning process. Next slide. Yeah, your classrooms will be more participative because students will be able to engage better. See, if the teaching pedagogy is such that it is adaptable to a wider audience, the participation of students will increase. As the participation increases, the discussions will be better and the outcomes will improve. There will be more learner engagement. They will have interest in listening and participating in the session. And yes, there can be some creation of new knowledge because, as I said, a teacher points to the truth in the direction, and when multiple people join together, you can come out with some information which did not exist before. So that is what happens, creation of knowledge. And ultimately, when the sessions are so involved and participative, it adds to your satisfaction that you are doing a great job as a learning facilitator or a teacher. So what is a thoughtfully developed pedagogy? It will help to make the student more receptive. That means it will actually be suitable to the student's learning methodology, where what he wants to or she wants to learn, how they want to learn. You are addressing some of those concerns. And students with different learning styles, abilities, disabilities also will be able to participate. So this ensures that the learning objectives of a program will be achieved. The ultimate learning objective of any program is transfer of the knowledge. So if the right pedagogy is used, irrespective of what process you follow, end of it, you will find that there has been a substantial transfer of knowledge from the teacher to the student or to the learner. So if this happens, then you can assume that you are using or you are following the right method, the right steps. So next slide, please. Yeah. So this is in continuation. What will happen when you use the right pedagogy? Higher level cognitive skills like analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating will happen. Knowledge comprehension, application, which are the lower order cognitive skills, will definitely be there. But as a teacher, your aim is to take the students into the higher level of cognitive skills, wherein they evaluate, they synthesize, they generate, they analyze, and they create new knowledge. So this is what the target you should be. Your pedagogy should be such that it can stimulate the learners to move from lower order to middle order to higher order cognitive skills. And assessment has to be very proper. You must be free and fair in your assessment. When you grade papers, being fair to the students is very critical, because once you are able to do that, you will be able to gain the trust of all the participants, which essentially will help to make them generate more interest and relate to the classroom. Next slide, please. Yeah, I am sure all of you who are part of the teaching fraternity would have come across this. So let us try and understand this very clearly. The lower order means features include remembering and understanding. These are the basic things. When you remember means you are trying to recall facts and basic concepts. For example, dates, names, location, capitals, all these things, currency of a country. These are all memory based. These are the lowest order cognitive skills. The next level is understanding, where the students or the learners are able to express their ideas or concepts. Understand, a square plus b square is equal to what? The equation. If they are able to understand that and explain it, that is understanding. What happens when you add, some acid to a base? Chemistry reaction. This is it will produce some salt and water. So this is kind of understanding of the concept. These are lower order cognitive skills. So this should be taken care mostly in the school days. When you enter into university or higher education, the focus should begin with application and analysis. Application is use the information which you have learned in new situations. So, you have a mathematical formula, you should be able to apply it in a new situation and solve the problem. So that is your application. Analyze. You have to connect different ideas. You have to be able to analyze. There are three ways to solve it. Which is the fastest way? Which is the slowest way? Why this is better? Why this step is more reliable? What is the right thing? If you analyze and come out, analyzing your own strengths and abilities. These are all abilities to analyze. These are the middle order cognitive skills. And in a higher institution, educational level, you should always focus on the top two, the top of the triangle, that is evaluation and creation or synthesis. So when you evaluate, you have to justify. These are the two routes. So I am going to choose step A because of these reasons. These are the advantages. So it stands to benefit me, the society, the country, whatever. And if you are able to create some new knowledge or come up with some new work, that is the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy. So, as teachers or facilitators, our target is to bring students from the lower order to the middle order, make them used to be able to apply and analyze the learning process, and then take them to the highest orders, that is to be evaluating and creating new content. So now that we understand what is the uh, process of teaching pedagogy, what is the interest in it, and what is the outcomes. Now let us look at understanding what are the different factors that affect a pedagogy. Many factors are there. So I want all of you to understand these different factors. The learning style of a student is invariably different. Each student learns at his own pace and in his own learning style the best way. Your competence as an instructor, your ability to inspire the student, your ability, your passion has a lot of impact on the pedagogy. As I said, if you are an inspirational teacher, irrespective of the pedagogy you use, the knowledge transfer will be there because students will idealize you. But generally, not all of us are blessed with that kind of competence. So we need to develop this scientifically, use the tools and other facilities available to us to ensure that knowledge transfer is better. The availability of additional resources. What resources are we talking about? facilities have like infrastructure, your library resources, classrooms, equipment in the classrooms, the technology, the flexibility in the classroom. Whether some places, the universities or colleges permit the teacher to have their own way of teaching. You can take sessions outdoors, you can conduct workshops. Sometimes budgetary restraints are also there. So these are all different resources that you can use. The educational system, this, when I say the kind of system under which you are studying the curriculum, what does the teaching body want you to deliver? They may sometimes be focused on more theoretical inputs, less practical inputs. The curriculum may be designed in a particular way. The board might expect certain things. So all these will have to affect your teaching pedagogy and the field of study, obviously. That same teaching pedagogy cannot be used to different fields blindly. A student studying literature will have a different pedagogy, and a student studying a practical subject like engineering would definitely require a different kind of pedagogy for their instructional purpose. So here, I have a very interesting slide here. There are broadly four types of learners: the visual learner, the auditory learner, a person who reads, writes, and learns, and the kinesthetic learner. So you have to find out what is the type of learner that you are engaging with and what learning types they belong to. So there is a link which I have shared here. This link is a self-assessment question which you can try for yourself. You can also copy that link and ask your students to fulfill that and find out what kind of learner they are, so that you are aware what kind of learners you are coaching. So please, you can take down that, take a picture of this slide so that you can try this out for yourself. You find out what kind of a learner you are also. Next slide, man. Yeah. So these are the most common learning styles. The visual learner who prefers to learn by seeing, a musical or auditory learner who listens and learns, a verbal learner who learns both by speech and writing, when you talk and you write, a read write type. A kinesthetic learner is a learner who learns by doing. They are more used to using their physical senses of touch and sight and everything put together. They would be the students who would be very fidgety in the classroom. They would not be happy sitting in a place. They would be very active. So these kind of students are actually, we might find them very disturbing in the class, but they are actually getting bored simply listening to something. They want to be involved in the process. They are kinesthetic learners. There are some who are very strong on their numerics, so mathematical or logical learners. There are some students who prefer learning in groups, the social learners, and there are some who practice in isolation. They are solitary learners. So you can please check it out. What is your learning style? Many of us would have a mixed learning style. Okay, next we are looking at very popular learning theories. These are three of the most popular learning theories. There are few other approaches, but I will focus on these three. Behaviorism is focused on the behavior of an individual, how he responds to certain stimuli. This is a very traditional system. It is like, giving you inputs and seeing the response to those inputs. That is conditioning or behaviorism. Cognitivism, it focuses on the mental processes where you think of giving so much data to the learner and see what he comes or makes up of that data. So that is focusing more on the analytical and logical reasoning ability of the learners. And constructivism is the third very important learning theory, which focuses on reflection and actively processing new information. So how much thought they are giving, how much the learner is able to, think and come up with new, build on the knowledge that is already provided, what more he can develop. So these are the more important learning theories. As I said, continuing, behaviorism, the process is by direct instruction, programmed or social learning theory. Cognitivism is based on the attribution, elaboration, cognitive development, and conditioning of learning. Humanism theory is based on experiential learning, what you gain over years of time through your experience. And constructivism is focused on social development, case studies, cognitive apprenticeship, discovery learning, problem based learning, situated learning or simulated learning, activity based learning, role plays or actor network theory. These kind of practices construct means they build on existing knowledge. Next. Yeah. So these are some of the main authors of different theories. So I'm not going to, read this out in detail, but in general, it is for you all to understand who has, promoted this theory and what is the key concept of the theory. For example, like behaviorism, the key concept is response to stimuli or observable behavior. Constructivism, where learning is an active process and knowledge is constructed on existing knowledge. Cognitivism is focused on learning, working in the mind, internalization of the content. Connectivism is a social connect, technological sharing and constructing knowledge. And andragogy, again, like adults learn in their own way. So that is what is mentioned here. What is the role of a teacher in any of these processes? So for behaviorism, you have to create the stimuli. For constructivism, you create a dynamic learning environment. For cognitivism, you create optimized learning environment. Connectivism, you enable networking and connecting, like making groups and other activities. And under andragogy, your role as a teacher is to respect learners' knowledge and their solutions and encourage them. That is because adults are not easy students, and if they have got years of learning already into them, unlearning them is a big challenge. So you need to give time and ensure that you are able to reach out to them in the right manner. Next, please. So these are, as I said, the different approaches to teaching learning pedagogy. Collaborative, where you collaborate with your learners as well as other resources. Constructivist, as I've already explained, build up on the existing knowledge. Inquiry based, which can be, a question and where the student community is set up to, get information and then, develop. Reflective is where you give them options to reflect on various problems and come up with their solutions. Case studies could be one. Integrative is where you integrate multiple systems, multiple practices, and build on those. Next. Yeah. So what exactly happens on each of this approach? So a constructive approach is student-centered, builds on past knowledge, and the facilitator is the instructor, learning by doing. So they actually practice, but it may be a little slow. The reflective approach, a continuous assessment of the pedagogical practices. It's a model approach for the trainee teachers. It's outcome based and involves timely reassessment of learning objectives. They need to keep on, once you have reached a certain level, your objective can change. Collaborative, it involves teamwork. It brings in the different abilities of learners together. So teachers and students may work in separate teams or may and may not work together, but it enables use of different practices. Integrative is where you integrate the classroom with the outside world. The curriculum is more realistic. It is relatable to real life things. It encourages the application of knowledge. Definitely, it is in the middle order and higher order of Bloom's taxonomy. It generates interest in most of the mathematical and science subjects specifically. Inquiry-based approach is student-centered. It excites the student because they are able to check and find solutions, so they are more actively involved. There are four types. It can be there is a particular solution which they confirm. It can be whether they make the right structure. You can also guide them towards the outcome that is desired, and it can be an open-ended process where they can come up with new outcomes. Next. So these are some of the important articles in today's date which are available on different of the teaching, learning, pedagogy, and what is what. So this, I think, again, you all can take a picture of this slide. These things you can go through further for more information. So please, if you want, take a snap of this slide. Next, please. Yeah. Now I am just sharing some strategies of collaborative learning. What is it? It's a team-based learning. You can make a think, pair, share. You make pairs of students to think on certain things and share it. It can be a catch-up system where groups come and catch up on the same subject. It can be a case study, and students can be working in groups and present their views. There can be a discussion, and it can also be a debate on a particular point where each individual or in groups they discuss and debate on a particular topic. Next. I want all the participants to please look at this slide very carefully. Understand this slide because this will help you to actually move from the passive to the active. When we do a lecture, when we are reading, when it is an audio visual or a demonstration, which are all teacher centered, which is what the teacher will be doing. So you can see what is the retention. A lecture has 5%, reading has 10%, and audio visual has 20%, whereas a demonstration, the retention is only 30%. But the moment we move into the active learning process, you see here a discussion where the student is participative, the retention is 50%. Where they practice the task by doing it themselves, the retention is 75%. But best of it is if you can make the students teach the other students, then the retention is 90%. So we should actually in higher education move from the traditional methods which are on the top to the bottom, which are the advanced learning processes where we are talking about discussions, where we are talking about learning by doing, experiential learning, flipped classroom, teaching others, and project based or activity based gaming, and so many things would all come under the lower half, which is what we want to achieve, the active learning process. Wherever a student is involved in the learning process, it is active. So even if you have a session where you have to take a lecture, include some activities in it so that it becomes an active learning session. Next. Yeah. So what are the pedagogical skills a teacher should have? Traditionally, it was communication, adaptability, collaboration, inclusivity, and compassion. But A modern day teacher needs a lot more skills. You need to be more organized. You need to have a lot of tolerance because students are very, different. The younger generation, which is especially the generation, alpha and the newer generation today, are more involved in gadgets. Their attention span is very less. So you need a lot more preparation. You need a lot more commitment. You need to be a good storyteller. You need to have the ability to attract the audience for a long period of time. You have to be open for questions, whether they are relevant or irrelevant. You must be able to answer them or address those. You have to be creative and innovative. You must mix with your students in a social platform, maintaining your dignity and respect. You must be clear with the modern day technology. You must be comfortable and you must practice this also, and you must be a geek. You must have the modern day language. You must be able to adapt to certain things. I'm not saying you use it, but at least be aware of it, and so that you are not caught totally off surprise when a student says something and you say that, are you both communicating in the same language? So this is where the role of pedagogy also is important, and your ability to develop yourself to be able to deliver to the present day students. All these things are part of your learning process. Next. Yeah, how to improve your pedagogical skills. You have to review your student evaluations. Check it out whether you are doing it free and fair, whether there is a scope to improvement. Try to discuss these skills with your colleagues. Engage in healthy conversations with your friends, colleagues, and read more on this subject. You attend professional conferences or sessions like this where you can get some information and keep up with studies in pedagogy. As I already said, you can ask your institution or organization for additional training. Keep updated with the new technology and gadgets. Next. How to use these skills. Be a proactive communicator. Try out different teaching styles, teaching methods. Try it out. Let the students come up and design assignments. Ask them to take sessions. Make your classrooms more inclusive. Give students the opportunity and space to express their thoughts, views. Learn to identify the learning traits of the students. Be a learning facilitator rather than a teacher. Evolve yourself. Help transfer of knowledge. Do not force knowledge transfer. Assist the transfer to happen. Next. Some of the innovative teaching methods, I have already talked about this: project-based learning, flipped classrooms. You can make crosswords, quizzes, MCQs, experimental learning or experiential learning, activity-based learning. Activity can be in the classroom, outside the classroom. You can use simulations, role plays. You can have virtual labs, and you can also use a blended learning process where it is part of practical and partly it is online or self-learned or anything. So a combination of all this also can be a teaching process. So these are all different innovative teaching methods. Now let us understand what is the learning cycle and how should it be. At the beginning of this session, you saw I clearly mentioned the learning objective. So you must have the learning objective for every session. The instruction delivery and self-learning should be clear. What is the instruction? See, here I have given certain points for you. I have also shared some inputs where I have given some things which you need to look up for yourself. Self-learning options are there. The learning activities, interactions, exercise, and practice, that has to be clear. Then you evaluate against the learning objectives. Take a feedback and restart from the beginning. It can be a process for each chapter, for each credit, or for the complete course. So the delivery process must be very clear. Objective, process, what is involved, deliver, evaluate, and then take a feedback and reset the objectives if there are any gaps. Next, these are some noteworthy points. You start every day with an icebreaker to break the monotony of the classroom, to generate the interest. Icebreaker should not be more than 2 to 3 minutes in, but it should be a wake up call. All the students should sit up and be attentive. The introduction should always be a win, which I have already shared. What, interest, and need. The interest should carry two aspects. One is a professional interest, another is a personal interest. So you plan and make sure that this is part of this. For example, what was the objectives of this session? Interest, professionally, how this is going to help you. Personally, also how you can improve as a person. And the need, what is the need for the pedagogy? That has been scientifically explained throughout the steps, how it will make you a better teacher and make your sessions more uh, good for knowledge transfer. Your delivery has to be structured and planned. Break down the process into steps so that students can repeat those steps and understand. Reinforce the learning, stimulate and engage the students, evaluate and summarize at the end of the session, and again, have a recap in the next session so that the learning is drilled into the student. Next, what are the tips for active classrooms? You must have high energy levels yourself. If you are feeling drowsy, don't go to the classroom, because that energy transfer will happen to the student. They will also sleep. Don't be predictable. Every day you should be having a new thought, a new way, a new approach. Don't do different things, but do things differently. Be innovative, be creative. Involve the students in activities. Have them to lead sessions. Encourage them, motivate them, and applaud for every positive thing publicly, and scold in private or admonish in private in an encouraging fashion. Next, some more tips. Be yourself, don't try to copy anybody. Be honest and passionate towards the subject. Accept your limitations if you have. Be open to learning from students, make them the teachers. Share the information, acknowledge the achievements, as I said. Update yourself continuously with research. Prepare for every session like it is the first time, and be prepared for unexpected things. Don't get caught by surprise. Be ready to face any challenges. So that actually brings me to the end of this session. Thank you all the participants for being such good listeners and taking the time to listen to me. I hope I have been able to share some information which will be useful for you in your day-to-day process. Feel free to ask questions. I think you are all able to unmute and speak. So if you have any questions, please ask. I'll try and address it to the best possible.
Thank you, sir. Participant, the session is open up for discussion. You can kindly unmute yourself. You can even post your queries in the chat box also.
Thank you, Rashmi.